In this video, I'll be taking a look at the game Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn. Now really quickly, just a heads up to all the Nintendo Switch owners, if you have previously bought the first NBA Playgrounds on the Nintendo Switch when it first came out on the Switch, then you are going to be eligible for a free copy of Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn. And you don't have to do anything crazy to check if you got this game for free from the promotion. All you really have to do is go into the eShop and this game will be free. If it says it's free, then you're eligible. If it says it costs money, then of course you're not eligible. So just go into the eShop if you bought NBA Playgrounds and you're still unsure if this game's going to be free for you or not. Go ahead and check there. Now, Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn is a multi-platform game. It's on PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. I'm not sure if it's on the PC at this current time. It may or may not be on the PC. I'm not quite sure about that, but it's on all current gen home consoles, and this game is going to run you $20 as a digital download. However, there is a physical release for this game, but for the love of God, please do not buy this game as a physical game, because once you buy this game as a physical game, the price will jump a lot. It goes from $20 to $40 physically, and in my opinion, there is no way that this game is worth $40. Even if you're a die-hard video game collector, I highly recommend that you do not buy the physical version of Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn, because $40 is way too much money for this game. So just buy the digital download at half the cost and you'll be okay. Now, I want to make this clear before I start the review for Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn. This is going to be the Switch version. The reason I'm saying that I'm reviewing the Switch version is because there is one major problem with the Switch version, and I just wanted to state that so you guys are aware that I am reviewing the Nintendo Switch version of the game. Before I go on about Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn, I'm going to tell you one of the major problems I have with this game, just to get it out the way so you'll be aware if you're thinking about picking this up on the Nintendo Switch. The real problem with the Nintendo Switch version of Shaq Fu is the fact that Shaq Fu on the Nintendo Switch, for some odd reason, when you boot this game from the home screen of the Nintendo Switch and you're trying to get to the initial home screen of the actual game or the main menu of Shaq Fu, it's going to take quite some time. The main loading screen on Shaq Fu before you get to the main menu is absolutely terribly long for some reason. I don't know why that is. I don't know if they couldn't get the coding right for the Nintendo Switch. I don't know if their budget wasn't big enough to where they couldn't do something. I would imagine that this game could easily be a game that could actually load very fast on the Nintendo Switch, and it's just the same. This game loads very slow on the Nintendo Switch just because the Nintendo Switch is a hybrid system, and a lot of times you will be playing this on the go. You just want to play a quick game on your Nintendo Switch while you're out and about somewhere, but with Shaq Fu, you're going to be sitting with your Nintendo Switch and waiting quite some time for this game to load, and that's absolutely a shame. Now, I'm not sure if the longer loading times are on the PS4 version or the Xbox One version. I can't vouch for those versions just because I have not played those versions, but I have played the Nintendo Switch versions, and the loading time, the main initial loading time for the game right before you get to the main menu is quite too long. And I am going to show you right now on video how long the actual loading time is of the main menu, and it's going to be fully unedited. I'm going to show you the whole entire time it takes to actually load the game. I'll meet you right on the other side of the loading screen. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn, Shaq Fu is a beat-em-up style game. So if you play games like Double Dragon, or if you play games like Turtles in Time, those type of games, then you'll feel really familiar with Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn. Now, Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn is just your standard beat 'em up affair. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're not trying to change the genre up. It's just your standard beat 'em up affair. There's nothing that screams must buy game. There's nothing that screams different beat 'em up here. So if you played any other beat 'em ups in the past, then you'll feel like you've already played this game. There's nothing too fantastic about this game. Let's talk about the actual gameplay, the graphics, and everything like that. Let's start off with the actual graphics of the game. Now, when it comes to the graphics of Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn, Shaq Fu is actually pretty decent graphics. They're nothing that are going to blow your socks off. There's nothing that's going to make you say, wow, this is a very good game. They're not terrible graphics, but they're not good graphics either. They're somewhere in the middle. They're pretty much passable graphics if you look at the graphics. They're nothing that's going to make you not want to play the game, but they're nothing that's going to make you say, wow, these are some of the best graphics I've ever seen on a console before. Nope, that's not the case. But what we have here are good cartoony graphics. The style of this game fits the bill, and I think the graphics are definitely passable here. And I think most people won't be complaining about the graphics too much in this game because they're standard graphics. There's nothing bad about them, but there's nothing good about them. So that's good. The soundtrack in the game, I actually like the soundtrack. The initial soundtrack you get when you first start up Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn on the main menu is absolutely fantastic. I love the way Shaq is talking in the game. I just love how he's singing on his soundtrack. It's just overall a very good soundtrack. I like most of the sound in this game. Now, this game, besides the actual beat 'em up aspect of this game, does actually have a story to the game. And I was surprised to see that this game had story. It was a story-driven beat 'em up, and the story in this game is absolutely fantastic. If you're into like cheesy comedy, or you like just comedy in general, or you have a really big sense of humor, then you probably like the story in this game, because this story in this game doesn't take itself so seriously. It's really cheesy comedy. It's really just it's just really comedy is what I'm pretty much trying to say. So if you love comedy, you love to laugh a little bit, you can take things not too serious, then you're gonna love the story of this game. I love how the story's played out. I love the fact that there's a lot of pretty good cutscenes in the game too to go along with the story, and the cutscenes in this game look pretty good, and I love the way they animated them. Overall, I love the fact that this game does have a story. It's not just trying to take you through a typical beat 'em up. They do have a story to go along with this, and it's just a silly, funny story. It's over the top. I love the fact also in Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn, they do a lot of nods to Shaq. For instance, there is one pickup in the game that's definitely a nod to Shaq. One of the pickups in the game is a health pickup, and the health pickup is Icy Hot. And if you know anything about Shaq, he does all the commercials for Icy Hot. So that was pretty cool to pick up health in the game, and it was Icy Hot. They also have a nod to Gold Bond. If you know, also Shaq is also one of the people for Gold Bond, and they did Gold Bond in the game. And then they also have some nods back to the crowdfunding, how this game was crowdfunded in the game. I thought that was absolutely funny. I was laughing when they were talking, when on one of the cutscenes they were talking about how this game was crowdfunded. Overall, you're probably going to end up taking a laugh or two, maybe even if you're not, I would say, into comedy or whatnot. I'm pretty sure you'd probably laugh just a little bit, because the story in this game is kind of funny. It's over the top. Overall, very good. Now let's pretty much get down to the meat and potatoes of this game. Of course, the gameplay. How is the actual gameplay of this game? Well, when it comes to beat 'em ups, like I said before, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's not trying to be different from other beat 'em ups on the market. If you played any other beat 'em ups, and you most likely played this game, there's nothing amazing about it. When it comes to actually controlling Shaq, the game controls good. I don't know what FPS this game plays at, but it plays at a very good frames per second, whatever it plays at. And when you're actually playing this game, there's not really a lot you can do. So it's your standard beat 'em up affair. You go to a section of the level, you beat up every enemy on screen, more enemies reappear, you fight those enemies on screen, and then after that you move on to the next section of the level, and then after that you keep going until you hit the end of the level, where there's a boss at the end of each level. Then after you beat the boss of that level, then you go on to the next level. I don't know how many levels of the game there are. I've probably played like 4 or 5 levels of the game, and that's absolutely a lot of levels of the game. And I know I still have a little bit more left of the game to play the game, but it does actually it is actually pretty fun going around beating up enemies on screen with Shaq. There's some combos you can do, but there's not a lot when it comes to like customization, when it comes to like leveling up and things like that. Pretty much what you get in the first level or the second level, that's pretty much what you get throughout your whole experience, at least from what I played. And I played a lot of the game, not the whole entire game yet, but I played most of the game to get a general sense of the game. And I don't think there's pretty much anything more the game's going to offer, so you don't, like I said, you don't have a leveling system to level up Shaq to get different combos, to get different moves. What you get at the beginning of the game is what you're going to get, and there's not a lot. And that's really my one complaint when it comes to the gameplay of Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn. My biggest gripe with my biggest gripe with Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn is how repetitive the game gets, just because you don't level up Shaq, you don't get different combos. You pretty much have one basic normal attack, and then you have two specials, but those two specials do get repetitive over time because you're doing the exact same thing every single time. You have your normal, like whatever normal fighting you can do, and then you also have a special which it's like a big kick, and it appears on screen. You can kick enemies with this big special kick, and then you also have like this ground pound. Then you can also push enemies with like this super speed or something. You can push enemies to each side of the screen, and that's pretty much all you get throughout your whole entire time. You don't get any more combos than that. So pretty much most of the time you're going to be using only 3 different buttons on your controller to control Shaq. You're going to be doing your normal attack, and then you're going to be either doing one of the specials, the ground pound, or the shoe attack, the giant shoe, and that's pretty much it when it comes to attacks. However, there is pickups you can pick up in the game, just like other beat 'em ups. So you can pick up like swords, you can pick up signs. There's one level where you pick up gas cans, and then you can actually throw like these cans at these enemies, kind of like bowling. So there's other pickups you can't pick up in the game, but those pickups don't do anything really. They're just really simple pickups. When you actually use them, you can't do any combos with the pickups you pick up in the game. You can only like swing it a little bit, so it doesn't really add too much variety in the game. Other than that, there's also these suits you can pick up in the game. So Shaq will sometimes get this mech suit that'll actually put on, and then you can start punching super fast, and you can do like a super ground pound. And then also there's one like a cactus you can get in the game, and those are cool. But in my opinion, when I started playing those and I started using those quite some time, those suits really started to get repetitive. I actually found the suits in the game, like the mech or like the cactus suit, I actually found them more worse than the actual fighting with Shaq without a mech suit to be worse. I didn't really like the actual suits Shaq was actually using. For a while it was fun, my first time using it, but then when they started reusing it, like I know for instance the first suit in the game, you reuse the first suit in the game, the mech suit, and once I played it the second time, I really wasn't feeling it, and I just don't like the way that you use it. It's just boring overall. I wish those were kind of like cut out of the game, or maybe you use them a little bit less in the game and I'd be happy, but I'm not really a fan of that. But that's pretty much all you can do when it comes to the actual gameplay of the game. How hard is Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn? Well, there's 3 different difficulties in the game. There's a easy, normal, and hard. Currently I'm playing on just a standard difficulty, the normal difficulty, and on normal difficulty, no matter what you say, even if you're an experienced beat 'em up fan, you will be dying from time to time. There's times where I did end up dying in this game, so be prepared to die. It's not like normal's that hard. I do have one complaint. There's one boss I'm going to show you on screen right now that I absolutely had a terrible time on normal, so just be careful if you're thinking about playing this game on normal for the first time. This is the boss I'm talking about, and this is one boss I had way too much trouble actually playing in the game, just because for some reason they made this boss way too hard, and it took me about 20 attempts to beat this boss, and that was one of the bosses I really hate in the game. I do have to mention as well, when you die in this, kind of slow. It's not as slow as the initial boot of the game, but I did want to point this out. If you're going to be dying a lot, you will have to wait through a loading screen. There is a loading screen. It's not going to be instantaneous when you actually reload from a death, so just take that into consideration as well. What do I think of Shaq Fu overall? Well, overall I think Shaq Fu is a great game. I'm not going to say if it's worth $20 or not worth $20. It's really hard to say. You do also have to take in consideration there is a lot of other games on the market that are indie games that go from $10 to $20 that offer a lot more content. Like for instance, I did review a game on my channel called Enter the Gungeon. Enter the Gungeon is a game I think that's like $15 I want to say, and that's an indie game. And if you look on my Nintendo Switch profile right now, I've already put in 300 hours into Enter the Gungeon. That shows you how much content is in Enter the Gungeon. So it's really up to you to decide if you think Shaq Fu is worth $20 or not worth $20. I would say it's a good game. If I was going to rate games, which I don't normally rate games on a scale, if I was going to rate games from a 1 to 10 scale, I would give this game somewhere in the range of a 7 to a 7.5 on the Richter scale. Overall, I had fun with Shaq Fu, and I am glad I picked up Shaq Fu. Just a standard generic beat 'em up, not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's a good game. If you think it's worth $20, pick up this game. Most likely, you won't get you won't be disappointed with this game. Also, before I head out of here, there is some other stuff I did forget to mention, which I just remember now, that are in Shaq Fu. One problem I have with Shaq Fu is, so you may have not played beat 'em ups before, but if you played beat 'em ups before, a lot of beat 'em ups work like this. You play a level, but in each level there's sections, and in Shaq Fu, when you're going from section to section in each level, usually what happens is you play a section, you have to face some enemies on screen, the enemies die, but then they respawn enemies in the same section, and then once you kill those enemies, then you move on to the next section. One problem I found with Shaq Fu is, in Shaq Fu, when you're actually going from section to section of a level, I found the enemies too many enemies respawn. Like for instance, when you kill enemies on screen, the next batch of enemies will respawn in that area. And of course, with most beat 'em ups, you can't move out of a certain section until you beat every enemy on screen to move on to the next section of the level. Well, once you kill the next batch of enemies after they respawn, then more enemies keep respawning in that section, and then more enemies keep respawning in that section. So for me, I found that sometimes you're stuck in sections quite too long. For me personally, it will depend again on person to person. But I feel like a lot of people out there, that's going to be one big complaint, that the fact that why are you stuck in a section for quite too long? I wish you weren't stuck in a section for quite too long. Then it kind of feels like the repetition would set in a little bit more. It is nice that when you're going from each different level to level, they actually try to change up the scenery, they change up where you are, the enemies are quite different. That is kind of one problem I have with this game, the fact that the repetition will eventually set in when it comes to Shaq Fu. But that's not just the nature of Shaq Fu. That's also has to do with the beat 'em up genre. If you played the beat 'em up, you know beat 'em up is a genre that tends to get boring really fast, just because all you're really doing is going around beating up different enemies. And since Shaq Fu doesn't change up the formula any beat 'em ups, then it really does feel like the repetition sets in. Now, I have not completed the game. I want to be 100% honest with you guys. I have not completed the game yet, but I'm very far in the game. And what I can say, in my opinion, I think maybe the game might actually be a little bit too long for what it is. Just because the game, the repetition sets in a lot in this game. That's also something to take in consideration if you're thinking about buying Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn. Just note you may end up getting bored with the game because all you're doing is the same thing over and over and over. And also, you don't have a lot of combos with Shaq, so keep that in mind as well. Like I just mentioned at the beginning of the video, you only really have one normal attack, and then you have two specials, and that's pretty much it. And then you got the special suits you can get from time to time. So it's really up to you if you think this game's worth 20 or not worth 20. I just wanted to point those out as well because I did forget to mention that. That's pretty much it for my review for Shaq Fu, A Legend Reborn. It's $20. It's up to you to decide if you think this game's worth $20. Again, it's not a bad game or it's not a good game. It's a passable game, and I would give it on a scale of 1 to 10, a 7 or a 7.5. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.